Okay, so as we mentioned, it's going to be recorded, so you can find this recording in the partner portal if you'd like to review it afterwards. All right, so let's get started. This is how you'll see. Like we're going to work with a G124 today, but this is how you'll get any of our products by default. It'll start off in the wizard. So you have the opportunity to exit out of the wizard right after this page or continue through it. And the default address is 192.168.1.2 to be able to access it. All right, so...
Now, with the system that we're getting is the 1212, is it basically going to be the same?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'll go through the installation so that I can, or through the Wizards installation, so that you can see how easy it is to configure the system, and as well afterwards we'll go through some features we did not get to see in the Wizard. All right, so to start, as you can see, we can configure it in multiple languages here. We have English, French, and Spanish. We'll continue off in English. And then you'll reach a checklist. So this checklist, the first few here from the top all the way to the bottom here, except for the last two, are not optional. We'll have to go through those configurations. However, the last two you can select or deselect them. I'll keep them selected so we can go through those configurations as well, though. The first page here is the administrator's account, so this is where we'll put in the administrator's credentials to log in afterwards into the system. So I'll just put something simple. This is just a warning message saying it's a little too simple to change up the password. That's all right. So the next page here is the date and time. As you can see, we can't click the next button just yet. We have to actually apply a time. The reason for that is we have many features that are tied into the phone system that rely on the time. So we have to have the correct time here before moving forward. But your time should be synced to the computer, so we should have a proper time here already. Otherwise, you can manually change that up for yourself. And time zone and country settings are here below as well. So I'll click Apply. So now I can go forward. So the next page here is the networking settings for your device. Again, the default address where you start off is 192.168.1.2. You could change that up to a different static address if you like. If you're integrating the phone system into an existing network, maybe you'll likely have to change that. But you can also have a separate network, so you can keep it as well. It's always an option. In our manual, we have a couple different options, and we show you different layouts that you can do. So we give you a few ideas there. Okay, so the LAN is ports 1, 2, and 3 on your device, and then the WAN is port 4. So if you have something plugged in already into port 4 that has a DHCP server, you can click Auto Discover, and you'll get your IP address, subnet mask, default gateway, and DNS server automatically. Otherwise, you can set a static address there as well. It's always an option. We can also act as a DHCP server on the LAN, so if you'd like to do that, you can enable that here. We do suggest having it enabled if you're using our autophone provisioning feature because it makes it easier. The system will know where to send the configuration files, like to which phone. Otherwise, it's not. You don't have to have it selected. If you don't wish to use this as a DHCP server, you'll just have to go to the phone and specify where it should get its files from. So that is this phone system. You'll have to point to its address, its IP address. Okay. I'll click next here. Configure user list. So this is the users list that you'll create. We have 3 here by default. We have 6002, 6003, which is FXS1 and FXS port 2 on the device. which are both analog users, and then we have one default SIP user here that we call operator. All right, so we can add individually one by one, as you can see. So extension, first name, last name, email address, and cell phone. But I'd just like to show you, we also have what we call here a template that you can click here, and it'll download as a CSV file. So we can open that up, and I actually have it downloaded already here, so I'll show you what it looks like. So it's pretty straightforward, exactly like we saw on the last screen. You just put the, like it shows here in the example, you put the extension, first name, last name, the language they prefer, so this language will be in their voicemail. So if you prefer English for your voicemail, French prompts or Spanish prompts, you just put FR or ES for Spanish. Whether you want voicemail or not for this user, local caller ID, external caller ID, whether you want that user to be in the name directory or not, their email address and cell phone number. So if you've done, your homework prior to going on site and you plug in all this information here, once you get back to the users list here in the wizard and you're on site, you can simply import that CSV file and it'll populate the table with all that information. So saving you a lot of configuration time. All right, so that's a nice feature we have here for that. Next page is the configured phone list page. So this is where we'll actually configure our phones that the users will be using. So we have a template for this as well, but I'll add one manually so you can see how it works. I can explain it. So basically, it's pretty simple. All we require is basically, if you're using our auto phone provisioning feature, that is the user that you're going to be selecting. So if we're trying to configure the operator's phone here, extension 6005, we'll determine first what phone it is. I have a Yealink T28 that I'm going to configure, and then I just plug in its MAC address. You can find the MAC address on the back of the phone. So 0156511 5DC5. Okay, and you continue to do so for all the other users that you're configuring a phone for, and that's it. So just to mention, we don't. It is this simple because we've created a template for every single phone that we support with this feature. So what I mean by that is those templates will actually have configuration settings for all the buttons. Like, for example, the Yealink T28 has 10 buttons on the side and 6 at the top. So we automatically configure features with those buttons for you. So they're more commonly used features like we put BLF for the park rooms. We have like speed dial to voicemail, things of that nature. So stuff that's more commonly used. So the idea is to get these phones configured very quickly for you, and then you can do some minor tinkering later if you don't like one of the buttons and you want to change it up for something else. Then you can do so. Okay, so and also just to say, if we support at the moment Astra, Snom, Yealink, and one Polycom phone. We'll be continuing to add more support for Polycom. We just added the 3 new phones that Yealink released, and we'll continue to add more manufacturers for this feature. But those are the manufacturers we support at the moment, and also that's not to say that you won't be able to configure any other phone. You just won't be able to do it this way. So any other SIP phone would register fine to our system, just to mention that. All right, so we'll save that. Click next. So VoIP lines is next. We click add here. So as you can see here in the provider drop-down box, we have some providers that we can configure here. If you don't see your provider in here, you can let us know, and we'll be continuing to add support for those as well. But if you do, this is how easy it can be. I have BabyTel, for example, so I'll click BabyTel. So we plug in all that information in the back end for you, and we ask you simply for the username and password for your account. Okay. However, if you have another provider, you can select other, and then just plug in the information manually that you got from your provider. So again, just because your provider might not be in this drop-down box, it will still register. A SIP trunk will still register with our system. This is just made easy for you. So I'll just plug in my account info here. All right. And oops, put a name. Okay, and you can continue to add more. If you have multiple trunks, you can continue adding below. All right, so we'll click next. Next page here is ring groups. Might be asking yourself why you see a ring group feature here before, or sorry, ring groups here, a feature that you would think comes after, configuring incoming calls. It's so that when we're configuring incoming calls, ring groups are actually an option for you to select. And we'll see that next. So let's add a ring group here. I'll show you how it works. We have extensions in the 6000, so let's say this one's 6010, and we'll call it the support ring group. Okay, and then you have a ring time and strategy. These two work together. So if I'm to select users that'll be in my ring group, as you can see here, as soon as you select one, another drop-down box will appear, so you can continue to add them. But how they work together is, if I have a strategy of ring all, it'll ring all these extensions here in the list for 30 seconds. However, if I select ring in order, it'll ring 6002 for 30 seconds, 6003 for 30 seconds, 6005 for 30 seconds. So that's how that works. Otherwise, if nobody's answered in the ring group, if not answered, go to. So we can go to a voicemail box. So if I select voicemail box, then I have another drop-down to select which voicemail box. Or an IVR menu, same thing. You'll have another drop-down box, so you can also drop the call. Okay, so we'll stick with voicemail box, and let's say it goes to the operator. If nobody answers the ring group, he or she can take care of it. Okay, so we'll save that. Click next. Incoming call rules. All right, so it's pretty straightforward. Send incoming analog calls to, so that is anything plugged into the FXO ports on your device. We'll go to, and then you have the option to select here. So you see support ring group is now an option to select our incoming calls from analog. We want them to go to the support team so that they can get those calls. All right, send incoming digital calls to. So if we have BabyTel with a specific DID, we can send, if that is somebody's calling in on that number specifically, we can send them somewhere we like. So let's say a sample IVR. So the sample IVR, just to say, is an automated attendant that we have by default. It's just a simple attendant that we've created by default to allow you to build off of, so that you're not building from scratch. But we will cover that as soon as we're out of the wizard. All right, so we have all our analog calls going to the support ring group, and then all our digital calls from BabyTel, this number specifically, will be going to our automated attendant. Okay, so if we had created other trunks with another DID, if we have multiple DIDs with BabyTel, you can just select BabyTel and pop in your other DIDs right below here and direct them where you'd like as well. So that's how that works. And just to say, this is outgoing call rules, but just to say, incoming and outgoing call rules, there are more little things you can do outside of the wizard. Again, the idea of the wizard is to kind of get you through that initial configuration as quickly as possible, and you can do some minor tinkering later. Okay, so the outgoing call rules. This is the caller ID. You can set here the name and number. Emergency calls, so how you'd like to route your emergency call. So what the number is, and then how you route it. So you like the emergency call to go out your analog lines, or the BabyTel trunk you created, or any other trunk for that matter, would show up here. And also just to say, right here below, you can see this is how we dial out with analog. We prefix a 9, but let's say we chose analog here for our emergency number. Select edit here. You can select failovers. Okay, so to dial out the analog lines, you prefix a 9 or any other number you select here, or none. And then a failover, you can select multiple failovers up to 3 of anything that you've created, any SIP trunk or anything like that that you've created could be used as a failover. So which means if I'm using, let's say I use BabyTel, for example, as my emergency call, okay, excuse me, and BabyTel, I say if there's no prefix when you dial your number, you're going out of BabyTel. Okay, so I dial 9, that means I'm going out the analog lines. If I just dial the number directly, I'm going out BabyTel. So if I'm dialing 911, I'm going out BabyTel. My internet happened to drop. Well, maybe I want to have a failover here. I can put, analog. And then if my internet drops, which means my trunk becomes unregistered, then I have my analog lines to back me up. So that's an option. But not to worry if you don't plan on using analog lines. We also have 3G as an option to use as a internet failover. Okay. So next one here is remote offices. If you recall, this was our first optional configuration we had in our checklist. So what remote offices allows you to do is create trunks between multiple sites. So if you have a G124, let's say here in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and then one somewhere in the U.S., we want to create a trunk between the two so we can make inter-office calls, we'll need to use remote offices. Okay, so we'll be connecting to Positron in the U.S., so we can call it Positron U.S. You can select the protocol, whatever you'd like to use to create the trunk. The authentication method, you can have a password or no password, that's up to you. We obviously suggest using a password, but you simply put your the external IP of the other device. They do the same, so they have to create a remote office trunk as well to us, putting in our external IP address, and the password would have to be the same on both sides so that we can create the connection. And also, any firewall standing between, you'd obviously have to, make adjustments there too. So let's just, I'll just put anything here, but like I said, you'd have to make sure the other side, so them connecting to us would be Positron Canada, for example, as the name, and then our external IP address with the same password we specified here, so 1234. Okay, and then to be able to make any remote office calls or inter-office calls between the two devices, you'll have to set this below. So remote branch extensions start with. So our extensions are 6000s. So they would put our extensions start with 6 followed by 3 digits. So let's say in the US, their extensions are in the 5000s. I would say starts with 5 followed by 3 digits. Okay. And just to say, we normally suggest having, for your extensions, having between 3 to 6 digits. Okay. So you can obviously put 2 and all the way up, but we suggest between 3 and 6. All right, so that's for remote offices. And then finally, this was our last optional selection in the checklist. It's voicemail. So to enable voicemail, we'll have to make sure it's going somewhere. So in my case here, I have Compact Flash available. It says not available because I don't have one plugged in, but you actually won't see Compact Flash here. I have a testing unit, so this won't be an option. So we'll select USB. As you see here, when we have a message, it'll be in brackets. So if I have USB here, that's not formatted, it'll say so in brackets right beside. And beside the refresh button here, you'll have a format button, so you'll be able to format right from the wizard. Okay, so if I had to format, I can do so here, and then once it's formatted, it'll give you a pop-up. You can say refresh, and it'll take care of the message here. It'll erase it, signifying that your USB is ready to use. Okay, and then finally here below, enable voicemail to email. So this enables the voicemail to email feature, which gives you the option of either just sending you an email saying, hey, you have a voicemail waiting, or you can send the email saying, hey, you have a voicemail waiting, and include the attachment, so you'd be able to play it, from a cell phone or some other location if you don't happen to be on site. Okay, so if you do select that, you'll have to set up a SMTP server. Anything should work. We use Google over here, so that basically it's just an email address that you're using to send out all these voicemail to email messages. Okay, so we'll hit next, and you can see the setup is done. Once we press apply, you'll have a 2-minute countdown here, and during that time it'll apply all the configuration changes we've done. So after this, we'll be brought to the command center, where I'll show you how to log in as the administrator and show you some features we didn't get to cover in the wizard. And then after that, I will show you some of the options the user has available to him or her when they log in as themselves. Okay, so if there's any questions, or if Patrice would like to add anything, now's the time.
Well, I'm just checking in. I mean, some of this I know Cecil is not going to apply to you, but it is working. He will get to the point where you can actually look at it and see how to get your analog lines set up and get your phones set up the way you want them to be set up.
Right, and I don't know, whenever the Polycom people come in, I don't know how much of this they're actually going to do and how much of it they're going to leave with me, so I wanted to have as much information as I could so that I didn't get left, standing here holding a box.
Yeah.
Whenever we're all done.
You can look at it and it's pretty, but it needs to work too.
It needs to work too, so it's got some good features. I like that remote office feature, and there's some other things there that I think are going to be real handy.
Yeah, and what I would actually do is, like, when he comes across a feature that you really like, just write the word down so you'll remember it, and so you can either go back into the partner portal and look it up how to program it,
Okay.
or if you get lost somewhere along the way, we can actually help you with it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, at any time, if ever you're stuck, you can give the support team a call, and we'd be happy to walk you through whatever configuration troubles you might be having.
Well, I appreciate that. And my understanding is, I didn't understand this before, but my analog lines actually plug into this, so if the digital side goes down, I still have access to the analog lines.
Yes.
Okay,
correct.
Good. Okay.
Yeah, as long as you got to remember you have 15 simultaneous calls on the 1212. So
right.
Depending on, you can have up to 12 analog lines within that 15.
Okay.
So yes,
I'm only going to have 2 analog lines, so I should be fine with that. Yeah.
That's perfect. Yes. So yeah, that's how I would do it, is just write some words down, and okay, remote office you like, write that down so we can go back and look at it, and, I can help you with it as well once we get it in, once we're ready to start installing it.
Right. Okay.
Okay. And maybe, Rory, you could actually show them a little bit about how to do the Polycoms.
How to configure a Polycom?
Yeah, how to configure a Polycom phone to the system. Is there a way can you show them that online, on basic general?
Probably not in here.
Okay.
Unless he has a VVX 1500. That's the one we have support for in the autophone provisioning section. We're adding more support, as I mentioned before, but otherwise we'll have to do it through the phone. So we'd probably have to take that off the call.
Okay.
Gotcha. Okay. So even if I don't have that number, we can still use those phones. It's just going to require a different type of setup.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Good. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, because what you have on the phone right now, Rory, is Cecil actually just purchased one of our systems, and he's going to install it himself. And then Jim is from NTS.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, no problem. We can do that off the call, and be happy to show you how.
Okay, great.
I'm sorry, I should have told you that before, but that's perfect. How are you doing, Jim?
Pretty good. So far, so good. It's pretty straightforward here. Nothing really tricky on this part.
No. And actually, none of it's really tricky if you want to know the truth. My claim to fame is I can go in there, and after I've watched, I've gone through this a couple times now, I could actually get in there without too much hassle and actually program my system. And I'm not technical in any way, shape, or form. So that's one of the best features we have. It's a pretty straightforward system to program. All right. I'll let you go back.
Okay. So once we've done that 2-minute countdown, as you can see, it directs you to the command center. Now, just to mention, if you had changed your address here to a different address besides the default, it'll actually redirect you to the new address. Okay. So if you planned on plugging this into an existing network, then you'd obviously change that to a different address. So just make sure that, like if you have, no connectivity to the command center, that's probably why, because it's redirected you already to that new IP address. So just make sure you have access to that network to be able to reconnect to it. Okay, so I'll just log in here as the administrator, and we'll cover the administrator's login, and then we'll cover the user's login. Okay, so again, we have multiple languages that we can configure in. We'll stick with English. Okay. So the first page you're brought to here is the status screen. As you can see here, there's this trunk that we attempted to create through the remote trunk to Positron US. It's not registered, but that is because the other side has not made one as well. So had they made one as well, that would be registered. Our BabyTel trunk is up and ready to go, so that's registered. Our phone that we use the auto phone provisioning feature with is registered. Okay, you have your networking table, so that shows you your addresses here, your lines table. So I don't have anything plugged into the FXO lines at the moment, but these actually change colors as well, so they'll change to green. You obviously won't see no link here. The system table just below, you can see your firmware version, your config version, your uptime, so this is how long the system has been up for, memory information and disk information, and then just below that is the storage table where you'll find the information on your USB that you've plugged in. You can see that I have 2% used here, but that won't be the case for you if you freshly formatted a USB. I just have some information on there that I'll be able to show you guys after. I have a few backups there and some information in the CDR so you can see that. And again, you won't see compact flash as an option. Okay, so I'm going to go through the tabs we have here in order. Just under the status page, we have the queues status. I'm going to cover the queues feature and then come back here and so I can explain more properly. All right, so we'll go right to the diagnostics tab. So a couple things that I'd like to show you here that you didn't get to see in the wizard is we have a few tools here available to you. So this one's just a simple pinging tool. Okay, so you can ping out. All right, we get okay, so that's that. And then we also have a packet capturing tool. So if you enable it, you can select the interface. So LAN is ports 1, 2, and 3. WAN is port 4. You can select all of them. Specify an address and protocol as well. So once you're ready to start capturing, you can press start, and then when you're ready to stop it, you can stop it. And after you've downloaded it, actually downloads as a PCAP, so you can open it up in Wireshark. So it's a pretty useful tool. Console. Our system is actually, the base of our system is Asterisk, so if you start and stop this console, you'll see what's happening in Asterisk. Okay, so one way you might be able to use this, let's say you're having an issue trying to register a phone, you can start it, unplug your phone, plug it in, and stop it. You might get a message, for example, saying you have the wrong password specified, so then you know you have to change your password. So just another tool available to you. And then commands, if you happen to know your Asterisk commands, you can plug them in here. So like zip show peers, for example. And there you'll see your peers in the table below. Okay. After diagnostics, we have the logs here. So we have quite a few logs available, including the DHCP leases. If you happen to be using your positron device, the DHCP server, it'll actually specify the addresses it's given out and to what MAC address. Okay, so that's our 6005 that we registered with the AutoPhone provisioning. Okay, every log can also be downloaded. So we come back to the GUI log here, and just to say, this stuff is already existing on the USB. So if you recall, I said I have some stuff here so you can actually see. This is stuff that's already on the USB. So you see this is our only new message. So all your new messages will be at the top. You won't have to scroll down, and also you can download them. Okay, so if ever you're having any issue, you might call the support team. The support team might ask you for a specific log, so this is where you'd be able to download them and send them over to us. Okay, so that's it for logs. The system tab, the administrator's account, we got to see in the wizard. So if ever you want to change credentials used to log in as the administrator, you can do so here. Now the maintenance section, there's a couple things we didn't get to see in the wizard. The date and time we did, so you can apply a different time or different time zone or anything like that here if you'd like to reapply your time. Firmware upgrade. So to do a firmware upgrade, first of all, what you can do is, we'll just go back to the status page here for a second. If you recall in the table here below, the system table, you can see firmware version. So we specify the firmware version you're on right here. Okay. So I'm going to go to our website for a second. So here's our website. If you go to the partner portal right here, from partners tab to partner portal, and just to say if you don't happen to be a member, we can do that with you on the phone right now. Patrice can probably help you with that. But yeah, you log into the partner portal, and you'll have access to firmware right here in the fourth one down. And also just to mention, we have application notes, so this is for specific configurations. You know, for example, we said we said how to configure a Polycom, so here's how you would manually configure a Polycom phone, specifically the 330, but they're all the same. So yeah, you have specific configurations in this one, brochures and data sheets, frequently asked questions, language packs, so different language support for our system. You'll have to install a new language pack to have those prompts in those different languages. Manuals and guides for all of our products, partner certification, PC console, training modules, even the video that you see that we're recording today, it'll be right here. So I'll update this page and we'll have our January 22nd certification training. Okay. But to get back to firmware, we're using the G124. So we go right here to North American version, G124. Check the version here. Okay, so we can see it's a new build. It's build 6. So can actually exit out of that, and then we can see, okay, you know, is it worth it for me to change over? You can make the decision by checking out the change log here. Now you can see what was newly added. So sometimes it's just features. The last few were features, and then we have maybe a bug fix. So we have a few bug fixes here. So you can look through and see if it applies to you, if you'd like to do it or not. So our last one, we added auto phone provisioning coverage for the new Yealing phones, and then a new trunk for the drop-down selectables. When we created that trunk, as I said, we continue to add support, so we added SOTEL. All right. So let's say we decide we wanted to do that. You can right-click here, firmware, copy link location, or you can download it to your PC locally. And then if we go back here to the maintenance section and firmware upgrade, you can just paste it in there, hit upgrade, and it'll take about 2 minutes like it did with the Wizard. All right, and then you'll be fully upgraded to the new firmware. It'll hold all your configuration changes you've done prior, and you're good to go. All right, and if you happen to have downloaded it locally, you just hit local there, browse for it, upload it, and then upgrade. Again, it'll take about 2 minutes. All right, so that's how we do a firmware upgrade. Reset the defaults. So we have a soft reset and a hard reset. They both erase everything completely and restore your unit to factory defaults. The only difference between the two is that a soft reset will actually hold all the backups that you have. All right, so this is all the backups of the system. Those will not be deleted if you do a soft reset. Hard reset will delete them all as well. Okay, so it's a nice little difference between the two. If you want to hold on to your backups and keep them on the system and you happen to not have downloaded them, then you can just do a soft reset. Okay. So to create a backup, it's real simple. You just January 22nd today, hit backup. Takes about 3 seconds, and it takes all your configuration and puts it into a file that you can hold here on the system. You can download it, and you can restore them as well. So if you happen to have one on your PC that you want to restore, you can browse for it, upload it back, hit restore, and again it takes about 2 minutes like the upgrade and the Wizard, and it'll restore to those configuration changes that happen to be in that backup. Also, just to say another way you can use this is if you've created a configuration change and you don't like it, or it's not working how you like, you can just restore to your previous the previous backup. Okay. So that's it for backups here. We got the storage section. If you did not add a USB in the prior to or just before going through the Wizard, you can still add one after. You just come here to the maintenance section. You can format it here. Again, you won't see callback flash. After you've formatted, you can test the USB, see if it's working as it should. If you see a successful test here, you're good to go. If not, we'll give you a different message and telling you what you need to do. All right. Next tab here is logs. So to be able to save the logs, recordings, voicemail, or CDR, so-called detail records, you'll have to point them somewhere. So right now we have the CDR going to USB by default. Recordings, so do the logs for that matter, but recordings and voicemail do not go to USB by default. The reason why we have the voicemail going to USB is because we set it up in the wizard. So as you remember, it was something we can select or deselect. So we decided to select it to enable it and configure it. So that's why it's already selected here. But for recordings, if you want to be able to use your recordings, you have to send them to external memory, an external device. So USB would have to be selected in this case. All right. So when you hit save, it'll say apply your configuration changes and restart the PBX to apply the changes. Now, just to mention, I just want to mention this because just so you know, we don't ask you to restart the PBX on any and every configuration change. This is just simply to establish the links for the USB to whatever you're saving to them or to it. Okay, so it's just in this case. Otherwise, it's just a simple apply configuration, which you can do, live while the unit's in use. That's not a problem. 7100 Samsung. The dial-in here, this is not really commonly used, but we do have a few customers that use it. Basically, if you'd like to be able to remotely connect to this system, and this system happens to be in an area that doesn't have high-speed internet, and it's still in dial-up, like some locations might still have. This allows you the ability by plugging in a USB modem into our device, and you'd be able to use that modem to be able to remotely access it. All right. So, like I said, not a commonly used feature, but it's there if ever. All right. So the next section here is network. We got to see this first section here. This first section is it's a little bit of a different layout, but it's just your LAN WAN settings and default gateway, DNS server, and that. DHCP and NTP, so the pool of IP addresses and all that information we got to see also in the wizard when we had enabled DHCP server. This is just all its information used.
Next slide.
SMTP server here. This is where we set up for our voicemail to email, so we got to see that as well when we selected it, or selected that feature. We asked you to set this up. So we didn't plug any information in here, but had we, it would be in the table, so you can either edit from here, or if you didn't select voicemail, you'd be able to configure it from here as well. All right, so the next tab is firewall. If ever you want to access this device remotely, you could do so in two ways. You can do so with via SSH or HTTP. So, like if you're accessing this GUI remotely, you'd be using HTTP. So you want to make sure that's selected to allow it through. And from time to time, the support team will ask you for SSH access to be able to check the system from the command line level. Okay, so that would require SSH to be open.
Downloads are only available on
SIP RTP here and IAX2, these are for users, so remote users. If you want to configure remote users, that'll have to be selected depending on the protocol you're using. And then DMZ mode, if you want DMZ mode, you'll have to enable it here. Okay.
He works for
the next section here is block IP.
I'm going to interrupt for a minute, Roy, if you don't mind. If you guys wouldn't mind putting your phones on mute, we would appreciate that. just so he can actually, because we're hearing a little background noise. I don't know where it's coming from, but if we could put him on mute, that would be wonderful, and I would appreciate it. Okay, sorry.
No problem. Thank you. So the next tab here is block IP. So as we know, there's hackers out there that try to get free anything, really, and how they try to attack the system is they'll attempt to register as a user so they can make 3 calls, but or make free calls, but if they fail at attempting to register the number of times specified here, so we say 3 failed attempts. Once they've had 3 failed attempts of trying to register as the user, their IP address will be blocked, so they will no longer be able to try. After that, their IP address is automatically blocked here in the list below. So that's a nice security feature. But also just to mention, the same thing can happen if you're trying to register as a remote user. So if you have a remote user you're trying to configure, you can add them to the permitted networks table here, so that if, for example, if ever you're trying to register the phone and you plugged in the wrong password, the phone will attempt to register multiple times automatically. So you might be placed here below on the block IP address if you placed the wrong password. So then you can just click your IP address, delete, and add yourself to the permitted network here. That's just an example, but we've seen it before. Block networks, so if you see any activity that you don't like, you can just block them manually as well. So you can block a range or a specific address just by adding it here. Click add, and it'll be blocked. Okay, so that's block IP, SIP RTP here. These ports here are open by default on our system. So you'll want to make sure that, for example, with our remote offices, if you're connecting to another one, if there's a firewall standing between, you want to make sure that those ports are open. Same thing with a remote user. If you're registering a remote user, there's a firewall in between. You want to make sure that these ports are open, so there's no issue there. The SIP external IP address, you can hit get external IP, and you'll get it automatically. All right, so that's for that. The services here, if you want to actually stop a service completely, you can. So if you don't want any SSH activity going on at all in your phone system, you can just stop the service completely, and it won't be running any longer. PNP and MDNS are 2 different protocols we use for our auto phone provisioning features. So depending on the phones that you're using, you can shut off one or the other. Okay, and then HTTP port. If you decide to change the port that you're accessing this device with, let's say you go to 8080, for example, you can specify that here and just do :8080, and that's how you'd be able to access it. Okay, so that's it for that networking section, although we do have a couple more networking features here. First one is IP routes. So if you have different subnets, you could specify them here, okay, and they'll be added to the table. And then 3G, we at the moment we're supporting this specific Roger stick. We're looking to add more coverage, but that's what we have at the moment. So if you enable the use of 3G, you just plug in your 3G USB stick into your device, and then you can use it in multiple ways. You can use it as the telephone line failover. So if your analog lines fail, you can fail over to the 3G stick, which would allow you access to the internet and thus registering your trunk, for example. Or an Ethernet failover if your service provider happens to be down, it'll fail over to the 3G. You'll still have access to the internet and your trunk in that case. And then otherwise, if you have it enabled and it's not being used as a failover, you can use it just directly as internet access. So like in a mobile PBX situation. So like let's say a construction site doesn't have access to the internet. Well, if you have a 3G stick plugged in, you'll still be able to access the internet, have a registered trunk, and then make phone calls from there. Or sometimes we have natural disasters, for example, hurricanes and things of that nature, where it just knocks out communication. Well, a mobile PBX in that case might be a good idea as well. That's just an example, but that's how you can use it. So the next section here is CDR. So these are the call detail records. All right, should have something on the USB. There we go. Okay, so how this works is, well, you won't see this. These are just some test calls, but normally you'll see number to number here, or you'll see an extension to another extension if it's internal. We also specify whether it's an outgoing call or an incoming call, the start time, the duration of the call, and the billable time of the call. So, how it was ringing for this amount of time, but it was only answered, a few seconds later, for example. And then the disposition, so whether the call failed, whether it was busy or nobody answered, or the call was answered. Okay, so you can specify the number of entries you'd like to see in this table, specify by disposition, so you can filter it that way. And as well, you could choose by extension, so which call detail records you'd like to see by which extension. And just to say, when you download it, it'll be you'll be able to open it up in Excel and do some filtering and reporting from there. I know some companies like to have that. And we also have another feature which I'll show you after. It's right here. Call accounting, which will you'll be able to actually add some information there. So like the example I'll be showing you is let's say you want to specify which division the call is coming from. So like Positron has a few divisions. We have Positron Telecom, Positron Access, and so on. So we can specify, my call is coming from Positron Telecom, and then maybe, I don't know, employee ID. Okay, so you can add some custom fields there, which I'll show you after. All right, next one is recordings. So right here in recordings, I don't have any at the moment, but if there's a recording here, you'll have the ability to download and listen to it right from here. You can download them locally. You can sort it by date, so you'd be able to delete it by date as well. Delete individual recordings and delete them all as well. We'll also see when we log in as the user that the user has access to his or her own recordings, and they'll be able to sort the same way, but their layout is a little different and easier, a little more user friendly for people who might not be as tech savvy. We'll get to see that as well. Okay, and then restart if you're prompted to do a system restart. It's just right here. Okay, so I'm going to take a little breather here, so if anybody has any questions, or Patrice, if you'd like to add anything, now's the time, and then I'll just cover the last tab here and the user's login.
So what do you guys think so far?
Well, it seems pretty straightforward. Jack, my IT guy, is here now, and he's understanding a lot more of it than I am, but it looks pretty straightforward.
Well, that's outstanding. And yeah, and whatever he missed, he can actually go back. It'll be up on the web. So by the time you get the system in, you can actually go in and listen to the beginning of it, so we can get into the wizard on it.
One question I had on the recordings, can I set which extensions the conversations will be recorded on?
It's actually an on-demand.
Okay.
Roy, I'll let you answer that because it's actually an on-demand. You have to press a button, correct? You have to press
Yeah,
the code
sure.
to get into it.
Well, I can't set up for like one particular person. I just record their phone calls.
No, how it works is with these specific, with model 124 and 1212, we have what we call on-demand recordings. So you'll have to, there's a key press that you'll have to press. Like by default, we have #8, so you press #8, it starts a recording, and then #9 will stop the recording. So at any point, if ever you'd like to record a call, you just press #8 or #9 to stop it. However, with our G600, we'll be adding a new part to that feature, which is allows you to record all calls if you like, as the hardware can handle it, and that might be an option available as well to specify which extensions, as we've talked about it. But I do know for sure we will be working on adding always recording for the G600.
Gotcha. Okay. Good to know.
Okay.
But now, Cecil, with that being said, you can always monitor a specific extension. As the administrator, you can go in and actually monitor the calls if you'd like.
Oh, you can. And so, do they hear that I'm on that I'm monitoring it?
No,
they do
not. No, they.
Okay, so I can go in as administrator, and while they're on the call, I can monitor that call.
Correct.
Yes.
Good. Okay. We have quite a few salespeople, and sometimes it's kind of good to know what they're actually saying.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's always good. I was going to say it's always good for a training tool as well.
Right.
When you bring new people on, you can say, okay, well, this sounded great, but maybe I would have said this instead, or I would have worked it at a different angle.
Right. Gotcha. Okay, that's good. Okay, so that's a good feature.
Does it give you a prompt that says your call is now being recorded?
It'll give you a little tone, but only you'll be able to hear it. Obviously, not the other two parties.
No, what I mean is if say this is built in on the phone, you have a button to program it. Does it preface by your call may be recorded for training or purposes?
Oh, okay. I hear what you're saying. For the spying, you'll be able to.
What? I'm sorry.
You're talking about listening in on the call?
Not so much listening in, but the call recording is on a user basis, right?
Yeah.
Individual user, and they would then.
Yeah, Jim. What you'd want to do, basically in the IVR when you set it up, just like you put anywhere for legal purposes, is what you're saying. You can always put in there, hi, this, thank you for calling Positron. Your call may be recorded for, for training purposes. As long as it's in like the IVR, then the customer will actually know for legal purposes that it might be recorded.
Okay, so that would have to be answered then by the some sort of auto attendant. Then they would have to hear that before the call is answered then, or how the call is routed.
Right, depending on how the call is routed, you'll just have to throw in some type of message indicating that the call may be monitored or recorded. But we actually do recordings right from our system, so you'd be able to, from any registered phone, you could dial *95 and you can make your own recordings. So yeah, you'd just be able to throw in a created recording between, depending on how you route the call, just mentioning that the call could be monitored or recorded before it actually gets to the individual recording.
So if it's going to customer service or complaints, say you have someone that handles the complaints, and the call is being transferred to that group of people that handle that, it would say that's where that prompt would be, somewhere in there, that they would they would say to ensure quality purposes, your call may be recorded at this point.
Exactly, and
that way, if they're having a difficult customer, difficult time, or they're acting inappropriately, turning off the customers, that's where you could also do the surveillance thing. I would think as well.
Exactly. you'll have to specify that as well for that. That's why I thought you meant the surveillance, but yes, you'd probably have to mention that as well. And just to say, like in your example, you'd be able to do so. Like if it's a bring group, you'd be able to send it through an IVR. You put that prompt, and then send the call to the ring group, or you can send it directly to a call queue, and the call queue will have prompts inside there where you could select from the drop-down box your recording you created, which mentions that.
Okay. On the network side of it, is there any assessment that we would need to do if we were going to add this to the network, or does it do it itself whenever you hit that button? Like to see if the network's okay to put one of these things on.
I guess you'd have to assess the network that you're going to integrate into. You always have the option to create a separate network. So like a phone network would be separated from the existing network that's there already. Or if you decide to integrate into the existing network, you could determine whatever network they're on, set yourself up with a static address, and plug her in. And we have a few different layouts as well. In the manual, you'd be able to see like a few different options, as well as if and when you're ready to do so, you can always give the support team a call, and if you have more specifics, we'll be able to really give you a hand with that.
Okay.
Like it always depends. Like if you have, if you're going in there, you want to use the autophone provisioning feature. They already have a DHCP server which they'd like to keep existing, and you don't want to use us as the DHCP server. There's always a few things you might have to work around, but we'd definitely be able to help you out with that.
All right.
Does anybody have any other questions before we move on? Hello?
We're good. I'm good.
I'm good.
Okay. All right, and don't forget, if you come up with a question while Rory's in the middle of doing something, please please stop him so he can, answer it right then and there so you guys don't forget the questions. Rory's very good about that.
Yep, that's not an issue. So, okay, having said that, let's cover the last tab, and after we cover this last tab here, we'll log in as a user so I can show you what he or she would have access to in terms of configuring and some information too. All right, so users we got to see here. So this is the same table we saw in the wizard. If you plan on adding another user, maybe a new employee came in, you can do so here. But I did want to show you the user templates. Okay, so we have, let's say, operator 6005. And just to say before I start the explanation, you see users, the subtabs are users and user templates. The subtabs are here as well. So it's easier to access them instead of going through the list again. So if you see me click here, I'm just clicking the subtabs that are in the same section. Okay, so I'm going to explain user templates. So as you can see, we don't ask you for a lot of information here for every user. So every user obviously has more information than this, like, what codec is it using and things of that nature. So how we do that is to keep you from configuring all this information on every single user, we said, well, probably a better way to do it is to create a template that they can assign to users. So we have PTS internal template that 6005 operator uses. So we'll go to user templates, PTS internal. So you can see all this information is actually assigned to that user. Okay, and if you happen to want to create new information for a user, that obviously that information could apply for another user, so you wouldn't have to recreate it every single time and every individual user. You can just assign this template to them. Okay. Now, an example of how that's used is the following. Outgoing call rules. So every user can have different rules that apply to him or her. So, for example, if I want to restrict specific callers to just local calls, I don't want them doing long distance, I can do so with the use of the call rules and the user template. So, in this case, PTS Internal is using the PTS default outgoing call rules. So let's visit the call handling outgoing call rules. It's using PTS default, so let's check them out. So the rules are basically anything and everything. These patterns pretty much indicate that they have carte blanche. They can call wherever, however. Okay? But we said we want to create local, allow them to do local calls only. So I'm going to delete all of these. And by the way, these patterns are there by default, so it allows the user to do pretty much any calls. So not to worry, you won't have to set this up yourself. And if you do decide to set something up like I'm doing here, the pattern might look like a little intimidating. You might have to learn on, but you really don't. We have a pattern generator, and it's really straightforward. The number dialed is, so our area code here in Montreal is 514, followed by 7 digits, generate, and it creates a pattern for you. Okay, so basically this means they can dial any 514 number followed by 7 digits. Okay, so that has limited them to local calls only. So we'll call it local calls. Okay, and then you specify how you want it to leave. So I want it going out the analog lines or BabyTel lines. Let's say I select BabyTel. How you can strip and prepend digits, and then here you have a message. Excuse me. These are all the default messages we have, but again, as I mentioned earlier, you can dial *95 and record anything you want, which I'll cover shortly. But for now, we can put something, one of the default messages. So let's say, please try your call again later. Okay, so if the call fails, it says please try your call again later. All right, so let's save that. So now we'll go back to the user, and I'll show you how it applies. So every user that has the PTS internal template uses these specific dial rules, PTS default, right? So, and the PTS default, we just specified that anybody using PTS default call rules can only do local calls, all right? So that means our user here who has that template can only do local calls. Okay, so anybody else that we apply that template to would only be able to do local calls. All right, so that's just an example, but we thought it would be a lot easier to instead of creating all those configuration changes to apply all those configuration changes to every single user you plan on adding, just to create a template which obviously would apply for multiple users, so you don't have to continuously do it over and over. All right, so that's how the user templates work. Next section here is phone provisioning. Excuse me. So we got to see the auto phone provisioning in the wizard. Same thing here. If you want to add another, you can add another. So if you had a new employee, like we said earlier in the user section, we added the user for him, but we want to use the auto phone provisioning feature to be able to register a phone for him. We can do so here. Just add a new one, and away you go. Now, if you recall, in the wizard, I mentioned we have templates for every phone that we register, and that's why we only require these 4 simple pieces of information, because we apply commonly used features to all those buttons. So we give you a template of what those buttons should be configured with. So I had a T28, right? So, and here's all the support, but the T28 Yealink So if I click view here, you can see the first button is a speed dial to voicemail. The second and third button is to start and stop the recording, so #8 and #9. Okay. Fourth one is a pickup for a call group. Fifth one is desktop paging. Sixth one is call parking. So this would dial 700, and after you dial 700 with that, it'll mention the park room that it's in. And then 7, 8, 9, and 10 are monitoring the park rooms so that you'll be able to see if there's any calls in there. All right, so like I said, more commonly used features, you can switch these up with the drop-down box to anything you like. So that way going forward, when you configure that T28, the template would be exactly how you selected it to be. So you can customize any phone so that going forward it'll use a different template. Okay, and also just to say, for your existing phone that you've already configured, if you just go to the phone provisioning, back to the phone provisioning page, and you hit configure, you could change up what you have already configured here and, tweak it for that user. So again, like we mentioned earlier in the wizard, it's our plan is to get you quickly set up with our phone system, and we went through that wizard in 20-25 minutes, and the phone system was up. All your users were there. Your phones were all registered. The SIP trunk was up. They can they can dial out. They can take calls in, and all that happened in a very minimal amount of time. So the idea afterwards is just to tweak to your liking. All right. So trunks and lines, we got to see trunks and lines in the wizard. If you want to add another trunk, you can do so here. And let's say we were to add another trunk here, and in the provider drop-down box, as I showed you before, if you don't happen to see your provider here, and you know that you might have to add it again later, what you can do is you can go to provider templates, add one here. Let's say we call it test trunk. Okay, you plug in all the information you got from your provider. Okay, the provider will give you all that information, and then once you go back to trunks and lines and you go to provider dropdown again, your test trunk is there, and all the information that you plugged in will automatically populate for you, and then you'd simply have to plug in your username and password like we do with all the other ones, but this one is just a manual setup if you plan on adding multiple later. So it gives you the option to add your own. As I said, though, we will be adding more coverage to more providers, and you can always give us a call if it's something you use often, and we'll try to add it for you in the next firmware. Okay, so incoming call features, IVR menus. All right, so as I mentioned in the wizard, when we pointed our digital calls with BabyTel to the sample IVR, this is our default auto attendant. Okay, so if I click edit here, as you can see, it's a very basic setup. Well, first I'll explain how the call works. Every step here is actually followed one by one by one, so it's followed in steps. It actually executes exactly like you see. So once the call is answered, it'll wait 2 seconds. Okay. Now there's a wait, and then below it there's a wait extend. The wait will just wait 2 seconds, and you'll have the caller will have no choice but to wait the 2 seconds. A wait extend, the caller will have a choice but to wait or not wait. So the extend portion of that means it'll listen for keytones. Okay, so if I call in and I already know the extension I want to reach, and I don't feel like listening to the auto attendant, by selecting wait extend, you're giving the caller the option to just beep 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 and get through. I plugged in my extension, let me out of here, kind of thing. So a wait extend gives them that ability. Okay, After that, we have a background message. Now we have a background message and we have a playback message. Same thing is for those two as it is for wait, extend, and wait. A background will listen for key presses and play the message. So while it's playing the message, caller will be able to just punch in the extension they want to reach, and it will just patch them through right away. Or a playback, if you select playback message and the message here, they won't have the option of doing so. They'll have to listen to the entire message and then make a selection. Okay? So that's why when you're in some of those IVRs or auto attendants, you might be aggravated. That's the reason. So just below here, then we give them 1 second for wait extend. So already right here we're giving them the duration of the message to actually punch something in, and then an extra second below to start punching something in. So this is hello and welcome to Positron. And then the next message here also is still open, so still listening for keytones. If you know the extension of the party you wish to reach, dial it now. Again, waits 3 seconds, listens for key presses, repeats the message. If you know the extension of the party you wish to reach, dial it now. Again, listens for 3 seconds and hangs up the call. So like I said earlier, it's very basic, and the idea is to build off of it so that you're not building from scratch. This gives you an idea of how to build off of it. So I'm going to show you how we can. First, I'll start by using the *95 feature. So that phone that I had registered, 6005 before, we'll use that to make a recording.
Please record the message after the beep and end the message by pressing the pound sign.
Hello and welcome to Walmart. Okay, so that's one recording.
Please record the message after the beep and end the message by pressing the pound sign.
For support, press 1. For sales, press 2. Okay, so I created 2 recordings there. So what I meant by building off of it is the following. So we'll just go to the Sound Manager here, Sound Manager section, go to IVR, and this will have our 2 new recordings. Okay, so this is the extension it came from, and then there's a timestamp. Okay, so if you're wondering which one is which, it'll be by time. So we'll rename this one, and we'll say, welcome, Walmart. And then this one is sales and support. Okay, so if we go back to the incoming call features in the sample IVR. So now we can start customizing to our own liking. Okay, so this is Walmart, and our first message is, hello and welcome to Walmart. And we give them that 1 second, and even the background, we're giving them time to press any key if they know exactly where they want to go right away. And our next message is for one press sales, for 2 press support. Then we give them another 3 seconds. We can repeat the message for 1 press sales, for 2 press support. All right, and then just below here we hang up the call. Maybe you don't want to hang up the call. Obviously, that's rude. So you can make your next step to execute from here. So let's say they haven't pressed anything. Maybe we can send them into a call queue. In the call queue, somebody from the service department can take care of them. Right? So maybe we have a service queue. Otherwise, maybe if it's a smaller company, maybe not a Walmart. Maybe if it's like just any smaller company really, you can say go to extension, and then it directs them maybe to the operator, and he or she can take care of the call accordingly. Otherwise, you can specify whatever you want here, but like in our case, we said for 1 press sales and for 2 press support. So right here in the drop-down box group, this is where you can branch out. Okay, so you can branch out of your auto attendant by using this drop-down. So this will be like the key press. So for one, we said sales. So let's say our sales guy. Let's say we say go to extension and this user here, analog user. That's our sales guy. Okay. And then for two, we said for support press 2. Well, we created a ring group earlier, so we say go to extension and then go to the support ring group. That'll actually ring the complete support team. Okay, so that any one of them can answer. Depending on the strategy we applied, we said there was a ring all extensions and ring in order. So if we had ring all, that would be good. Anybody available would be able to pick up the call. All right, and the call queue. And in the call queue option, let's say we, instead of having it go to one individual for the sales guy, if it's a smaller company, sometimes they have one for the for that location specifically. Maybe it's a queue. You put everybody in a queue for all locations, and they get taken care of like that. Let's say that's the case. You can select queue, and you specify the parameters. Here would be like the name of the queue, and that. But we haven't created one yet. Just to give you an example. Okay. So now we've said the call comes in. We say hello and welcome to Walmart. For sales, press 1. For support, press 2. We're still giving them the ability to press any extension as well as key in any of the options we've given them. We repeat the message, still giving them another opportunity, and then we direct the call somewhere else. Okay. Then we also specify, because we said in those messages 1 does something and 2 does something, we specified how the 1 works and then how the 2 works, so how it branches out. Okay. Another thing here we have is time frames, which works with the IVR. So I'm going to come back to the IVR in a second here. So we'll save it and go to time frames and come back. So we have open hours, we have Christmas and New Year. So for example, if I edit open, you'll see this time frames it's a 9 to 5 Monday to Friday. Okay. So if I go back to the IVR and I want to include a time frame in my IVR, this is how it works. So if I go to a time-based rule, this is all the time frame is always a time-based rule when it's used with an IVR. Okay. So meaning based on the time, the IVR can do something different. So if it's in closed hours, maybe we direct the call somewhere else and we say, sorry, our offices are closed. If it's an emergency, dial this. Otherwise, you direct the call somewhere. Okay, so if you just bear with me for a second here, I'm going to show you how to create one. Whoops. Let's say leave a voicemail for the operator. Okay, so the label is just so you can put like a marker in your IVR. So it's like a flag in your IVR. So let's say open hours. And if you see right here at the right on the right hand side of the table, you have up down. This allows you to push up one of the commands in order to be executed before another one. Okay, so we're going to push this up to the top because we need it to be, we need the system to go through it as soon as the phone call is answered. And then we'll push this label up as well. And then finally we'll push this up as well. Okay, so this is how this works. The call's answered, and it goes directly to the open rule. The open rule means it has to be from Monday to Friday, and it has to be between 9 and 5 p.m. Okay, if it happens to fall within those rules, it'll go to here, sample IVR. So we're in the sample IVR, as you can see here. The main table, so we're in the main table. And then the open hours label. Okay, so the open hours label, which is the flag, so we put it right here. So it falls under those rules. It skips to this location, so it skips leaving a voicemail, and it executes everything below label. Okay, so meaning, let's say it's a Saturday. If it's a Saturday, then it ignores what it should do under that rule because it doesn't have to fall under that rule, and it goes right to voicemail. And maybe the operator left something like, sorry, our offices are closed. If you'd like to leave us a voicemail, we'll get back to you immediately. Okay, because we also have voicemail boxes you can create. It doesn't necessarily have to be a user's voicemail box. You can create what we call a virtual voicemail box, which is any type of voicemail box. It can be a company voicemail box that it would go to, and you can attend to those messages like that. All right. So that's an example of how to use a time-based rule in your IVR. So you can see you kind of build off of what we have here, and it makes it a little easier. At least we have something like a base that you can build from, and that you're not building from scratch. But heck, if you feel comfortable building from scratch, that's all right. Now we have just to say we have a lot of other features here that you have available to you that you can use in your IVR. I'm not going to cover them all today. It would take quite a bit of time, but all of their explanations. I just go back to the website here for a second. If you go to application notes, you can see IVR definitions right here. So that'll explain what every single one of those steps could do and how to use them. And also, if ever you like a hand with a specific configuration, or you have an idea and you're not sure it'll work, or whatever the case may be, you can give the support team a call. We'll be happy to help you through any of the configurations of an IVR. And also, just to say, once you've done it once or twice, they're pretty easy, straightforward to do. All right, so that's IVRs and time frames. Next section here is park and page. So I add one here. So this is our park and page feature. So you specify an extension, a name, the welcome message. So you can do another *95 and create your own welcome message if you want. See, like these are the two I created before. Or you can use one of the default messages. And then the parking message, the park time, and then extension timeout. So a park time is specified in seconds. So if the caller's been parked for too long, meaning past the time you specify here, it'll skip to an extension that you've created. So you want to keep them happy. So you can maybe send it to the operator. The operator's like, oh, I'm sorry for having you wait. Who you trying to reach? And then he or she can redirect the call. Okay. Or you can send it to a ring group, and so on. Any extension will be available here in the drop-down menu. All right. We have queues as well. So call queues. If I click add here, as you can see, we have many different things you can do within the queue. I'll start with a strategy here. So you can determine how you'd like to send the calls out to whichever agents happen to be logged into the queues, because you do have to log into a queue to be able to take calls. So you can say either ring all of the agents that are logged in. You can have a round robin, least recent, the agent that's least recently had a call, or an agent that has the fewest calls. You can randomize it, or you can have a round robin with memory. This is the pickup announcement. So again, you can add your own, so using the *95. Maximum callers that are allowed in the queue, so you can specify the maximum amount of callers that can be in the queue or not. 0 would be unlimited. If key is pressed, so in let's say your announcement, you can specify like, hey, if for whatever reason, if this is an emergency, you can press X key, and then X key will bring you to any of the IVRs you've created. So we don't have another created IVR, but you can create an IVR called, let's say, queue IVR, and the IVR queue you can select here, and then that'll bring you to whatever you've specified in that IVR. Like, I want the call to do this if it's an emergency. Maybe it just routes the call directly to a cell phone, for example. Like a cell phone for the support manager, or the sales manager. I believe we said the queues was for the sales team. Okay, so that's an option there. Join when empty, leave when empty. That's just if the queue's empty, what behavior you'd like. Ring each agent, so this is specified in seconds, so how long you're ringing each agent for before it moves on to the next. Wait time between agents. So this is, again, you specify in seconds. This is 1 second. So you obviously might want to give a little more time there. And then the wrap-up time after a call. So like, let's say you're updating a ticket after you've taken the call in your queue. You can give a wrap-up time here of like, let's say it's 2 minutes. You just put 120 because it is specified in seconds. Ring when on a call, so this is not common, but some people have asked for it. If an agent is already on a call, he can take or she can take multiple calls. If you click this, more than one call could come in while they're logged in. Report hold time, so this will report hold time to me if I'm logged in as an agent. This will say like, hey, so-and-so has been waiting for X amount of time, so it kind of gives me a heads up like, all right, maybe they might be a little aggravated because they've been waiting quite a long time. Okay, then you have what you can play in the queue. You can play your music on hold files, or you can play it from the audio in port. So let's say you've plugged in an iPod into our audio in port. You can play a playlist from there as your music on hold, or just a ring back. So it'll just a continuous ring. And then the announce position and announce hold time, this will actually announce it to the caller. So it'll say like you're in position 2 in the queue, so they're coming up soon, and then you've been waiting 21 minutes, for example. And then finally the call timeout here below is in number of seconds. So if they've been waiting for way too long, we'll redirect the call to an IVR automatically so that the caller is not waiting there. Okay, so that's call queues. Now, as I mentioned, I'd come back to this. So this is the status of the call queues. Okay, so whatever queues you've created and whatever agents are logged in, you'll see them here in this table. Now, it's not live, but it does auto-refresh every 10 seconds, as you can see here. So you'll be able to see every queue that's there, all the agents that are logged into the queues, and all the calls that are happening at that time. So you'll be able to see that in that table. All right. Next here we have DISA. This is stands for Direct Inward System Access. So the example I always like to use is, let's say there's an agent who's a sales agent who's on the road, and he doesn't want to use his or her cell phone. They could use the system actually to get dial tone. So let's say it's me. Okay, that's my number. And then you can specify caller ID, because obviously I don't want to say it to say my full name and caller ID. Maybe I want it to say Positron Telecom and give her a 1866 number. Okay, so you can specify that as well. So what'll happen now is I just go in the options first. See, there's a wait time. Let's say it's 10 seconds. Now I'll call into the system. I'll go into the DISA feature, and it'll say, what is your password? I'll plug in my password, which is 1234, as I specified here. And then the system will say thank you. It'll hang up on me, and it'll call me back in the specified time, which was 10 seconds. It'll call me back in 10 seconds, and it'll give me dial tone, so I'll be able to actually dial out of my cell phone, which is out of the phone system, and yeah, so you'll be able to dial that way. or use the phone system that way. And just to say, the phone system will actually validate that the number is correct and the password, so it's not just the passwords. You can't call, like I can't call from any phone and plug in the password and it'll work. It has to be from the number I've specified here, and the password has to be correct as well. But you can add multiple entries, so you can have, multiple DSEC accounts and multiple agents to be able to use this, like in our example. All right. Ring groups here, we got to cover ring groups already, but if you want to edit the existing or add another one, you can do so here. And then call handling. We got to see outgoing call rules and how they work. Incoming call rules we saw in the wizard as well, but call accounting we did not get to see. As you can see here, you get a message right away saying you need to enable call accounting to use it. It's in the PBX settings, so we'll go to the PBX settings here. And it's in the call handling section, okay? And it's all the way at the bottom. You just click that, hit save, and now you'll be able to use the call accounting. Okay, so I add. Now, we'll do the exact example I used earlier. So I'll just call this test for now. Actually, you know what? I'll call it division. So how it works is there's three levels, okay, or up to 3 levels. So you can specify the number of levels. In our example, we said 2, right? And we said before the call goes out, it'll ask the caller what division do you work for and what's your employee ID. Okay, so again here you'll be able to put your recording. So our recording would say what division do you work for. So let's say that big W is what division do you work for, and then you hit codes and then you get to this table. And how it works is we'll say code is my division is 123, and it's positron. I'll say it's the telecom division. Okay. Save, and you continue to add the divisions that exist, and then here, let's say the smaller W here on the welcome stands for what is your employee ID. So we'll add all the employees and their employee IDs. Let's say my employee ID is 745, and that's me. Okay. So what'll happen is now when I make a call, how you attach it is by doing the following. You go to the outgoing call rules, edit. You see call accounting here, and we have division available. All right. So now when those guys call out of the 514 number, they'll be asked first. They'll be asked what division do you work for. So for me, for example, I'd have to punch in 123, and then it'll be followed up with a question. What is your employee ID? I'll have to punch in 745, and then at that point, it'll be added to the call detail records that not only the existing information that's already there, it'll say like Rory also called out of division telecom at this time. So you can add some custom information there for yourself. So that's how the call accounting works. Okay, and you can add up to three levels. Then we have the conference bridge. So conference bridge, we already have 2 here by default. If we go to add another one and save, you'll see it'll say maximum of 2 conference rooms allowed. Now, if you just go here to PBX settings, as you can see here in the general section, maximum conference rooms allowed is 2. Maximum users is 40. So, because because the system is limited by simultaneous calls, we're trying to give you a form of control here, so you can control the number of users and number of conference rooms. So if you have them kept at what our defaults are, you should probably be good between the two. But you could you can fix them how you like. If you're not going to have, if you want 3 conference rooms, they're not going to be in use all at the same time. That's fine. You can do that. So you save, and then you come back to the conference bridge here, and then if you're to go add that next one, it'll be, you'd be able to create it. Actually, I'll just do that. So this is how it works. Conference bridge is by extension here. The name, the PIN code. This is PIN codes for the user. This PIN codes for the administrator. They both obviously have different abilities. Like the administrator, for example, would be able to kick a user. So they have those. They have different abilities that they're able to do. And then right below here is announce callers. This basically what it does is before you come into the conference bridge, it'll say who's calling. You'll record your name. It'll give you like a tone to prompt you to record your name, and then once you've recorded your name when you're coming into the conference, it'll say Rory is entering the conference, for example. Okay, and then if I happen to be in conference alone, or anybody in conference alone would be listening to music on hold until another person comes in. So here's where you can specify the source of your music on hold, so whether it's files or the audio in. Okay. Next section here is the Sound Manager. So we got to see a few things in the Sound Manager already. We got to see at least this portion, which was where we add our custom files with the Star 95 feature. But the music on hold here's where you'll be able to add multiple files, whether it's a recording or music files. But just to mention, they'll always have to be in GSM. So you can't upload an MP3, for example. You'll have to convert that to GSM first. But there are free applications out there that convert the files, no problem. Whether it's for Windows, Linux, there are free apps out there. And then language here, if you go to the language section, this is how you add language support in different languages, so prompts in those languages. Sorry, just one second. And then, so if you want to add French or Spanish, we'll just go back to our website here. I'll show you. You go to the same section where the firmware was, and you can download any prompts pack here. Okay, and then here's how to install it. But I'll show you how right now on the fly. I've already downloaded French. So I'll browse for it, and it's right here. So once you hit upload, it'll take a few seconds, and then there you go. So now you'll have the support for that language in your phone system. So I'll come back here in a second, but here's where you'd be able to use it. You go to PBX settings, right here, language. See, now French is available. So this is the global language of your phone system. What I mean by global language is basically all the prompts in your phone system will be either language here that you choose. But the reason why I mention it's global is because you can also set it by at a user level, because every user can set it for his or her voicemail what language they prefer. So let's say I deal with customers that are French only, then I can change my voicemail to French prompts so that it accommodates them. So they have the ability to change their own voicemail prompts. But if we just return to the Sound Manager here, and then we go to Music on Hold section. So this basically is just the two defaults that we have. So it specifies, the file and the source, and then the audio in, specifies the source, which is the audio in. Okay, so you can make multiple ones playing different files, or and that from this section. All right, and then finally, before we get to the PBX settings, we have one more simple feature here. It's called the phone book. Now, let's say you use all the phone keys for other things on your phone, but you have a customer that you call constantly, and everybody in the company, for that matter, calls them constantly because they're a regular customer. You can actually assign them an extension, so their external number will actually be mapped to this extension. So let's say it's 7000, and we have a company that we deal with on a regular is McDonald's. Okay. Now the McDonald's 1-800 number is, I don't know what it is, but let's say it's this, and we dial it on a regular basis. Well, I can put it into my phone book so it maps out to this extension, so that everybody in the company will be able to dial 7000. That'll go directly to McDonald's, this external number. Okay, so just a simple feature to it's kind of a speed dial kind of thing for everybody in the company for whatever number you'd like to specify here. All right, so that's how the phone book works. Now, we'll cover the settings of the phone system, and then we'll log in as a user, and then we'll wrap it up. So, general settings here, this is just the system's name. Country settings. Yeah?
For a second, on the, is there a way to set the incoming calls from a certain number and direct it directly to an extension? Just like you did on the outgoing with the phone book? This is a way to do it the opposite direction to where it comes in directly from someone?
Yeah, that's I believe that's how we did it in the wizard. But let's say, like what we had mentioned is all of our incoming on the analog are going to go to the ring group, which was 6010. But let's say we edit that. If you select the drop-down box here, you can select individual users. See, like we have 6005, which was the operator. We have analog user 1 and analog user 2, but any other SIP users that we've added will also be available here in the drop-down box. The support ring group, if we've created a call queue, it'll also be here in the drop-down box. So anything you've created will always be available to you to direct a call to it in the drop-down box here.
Okay, and we just specify the number it's coming from, and it will automatically redirect.
Well, you specify the IDs, the DID, sorry. So the caller dials a specific number. So let's say he calls no, that's not it. I thought it would still have the information I had from my Babytel trunk, but let's say it's, I don't know, let's say our analog number is that. Well, as soon as they dial that, it'll direct them here.
Gotcha.
Kind of
That's cool.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks.
No problem. Okay, so in the PBX settings here, this is just the system name, the country settings, again, the global language, whichever language you prefer your system prompts to be in. And again, the way you can control the amount of simultaneous calls is through the maximum users and the amount of conference rooms you use. Next tab here is call handling. Sorry, I know I keep clearing my throat. I apologize for that. So these are a couple more features that we have available by use through key presses. So you can specify or change the default ones that we have set up here, but like a blind transfer would be a #1, warm transfer #2, a pickup for a call group, internal voicemail, external voicemail. So the difference between the two is if you're calling from outside your company, you can you can dial 6051 instead. Let's say you call into the company, it asks you which extension you're looking for, you dial 6051, then it'll say for what mailbox, and then you specify your own extension, and then it'll ask you your password, you specify the password, and they'll be able to access their voicemail remotely using that. IP address extension, so if you happen to forget the IP address of your phone system, you can actually plug an analog line into FXS port 1, and you'd obviously have to set up an extension here and save it as a just in case, so that you'd be able to use this. But let's say we said it was 800, so you plug in that you plug in that analog line into the FXS port 1, dial 800. It'll ask you for a password. Now, the password will always be 123456790. Okay, and if you forget it, it's also in our manual. You'll be able to plug in that password, and the system will play back what your IP address is to you, so you'll be able to access your phone system again. And believe it or not, it's used quite often. Okay, IVR recordings extension, we got to use that. We saw how that works, so *95. Now here's that SPY extension that we talked about earlier on the call. So if you want to monitor a phone call, let's say I can use an example here. The president wants to listen into a phone call that the operator has with an important customer and see how he or she treats them. You could do so using the SPY extension. Let's say it's extension 750, they call. The system will prompt you for your password. You plug in 1234, and then it'll say, okay, which extension do you want to listen in on? So then you put in 6005, because that's the operator. So then you'll be patched into that call. Nobody will hear you. You'll be able to listen in on that call. Okay, audio in extension. So if you hit *97, you'll be able to listen in on what's being played in your audio in. So if you're using it for your music on hold, you can, you want to make sure, is that a appropriate playlist on my iPod that's playing right now? Let me just double check. Press *95 on your phone. Okay, yeah, that's exactly what should be playing. So that's just a simple feature, so you can check that. Parking extension, so if you want to park a call into a park room, you just dial 700, and the system will tell you which room the caller has been parked into. So the rooms can be from 701, 720, or you can specify a different range here. And then they can just route the call accordingly, or tell somebody, so-and-so is waiting for you in park room 701, for example. Parking time, so this is the amount of time they're allowed to be parked in before the call is redirected. You can specify a different number here in seconds. Okay, and then cell phone prefix. If you recall, we asked, when you create a user, we ask you for your cell phone number, so this is why. If ever somebody's trying to reach you, they have no idea what your cell phone number, they can actually just prefix in the 7. So let's say I'm trying to reach the operator because he or she's on lunch. I need to reach them. I can press 7, 6005. That'll dial their cell phone directly. Same thing with voicemail here. Let's say I don't want to listen for the ring, 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 and finally get the voicemail. I can just skip right to voicemail by dialing 8, 6005 and leave them a voicemail right away. And then pick BLF pickup prefix if you're monitoring a room or a user or whatever with BLF. You just prefix this in with the extension to be able to answer the call, or you can also put that into a key so that it's easier. And then call accounting, we got to see how that's used, but this is just to enable it here below. Now, just to mention, this is a lot to memorize. So for every user, what we actually created is once they log in, they have a cheat sheet. Okay, so they'll be able to see how to use all of these different features, except for like the obvious ones that not all users should have access to. they'll be able to see how all these features are used. And if ever the administrator decides, like, hey, you know what, I want to change this to 8050, for example, because I want all my extensions in the 8000s, well, they'll be able to see that live as soon as they plug it in, plug in their credentials, and they log in as the user, as a user. They'll see their cheat sheet has been updated with the new information that the administrators plugged in. So, like, they're saying, hey, why isn't the voicemail extensions working? They can check it out using their own login. So paging here is the next thing. So this is a different form of paging. It's a multicast page. So it works with all the phones that you've auto-provisioned. So this one will actually multicast page all the phones that are auto-provisioned. Okay, so this page comes out of the speaker of the phone. But then you have the option of setting up to 9 groups. So let's say you want to set up a support page group, okay? So my manager, for example, wants to page all the whole support team at the same time. He can do so. You just do it simply by going to phone provisioning, and every user you want to say maybe he wants to put in group 1. You hit edit here, and you can see they're all here. So you want to add every user for the support team. You want to add every support team user to group 1. You just enable group 1 there. You save. So then all the users from the support team are now enabled to group 1. So now when he dials *81, everybody in group 1, which is the support team, will be paged. Okay, and you can do so similarly with the ones below. You can create other groups up to 9. So the SIP tab here, this is some SIP settings that you can set, including some video settings, the call bit rate, and just enabling SIP video to begin with. So just to mention, we have a G600V and a 124V. Those two products can do video conferencing. Everything else, every other one of our products can still do point-to-point video calls, but you'll just have to make sure that this is enabled, SIP video, so that you can enable video calls. Okay, and we have voicemail and recordings as the last two here. So maximum greeting time. This is basically how long I could make a message for my voicemail box, and then minimum message time. This is how long the user could leave a minimum message of over 1 second. So anything less than that will be deleted automatically by the system, because obviously they haven't left a message. So instead of having you delete a non-message, the system will do it automatically for you. Maximum message time here. This gives the caller up to 60 seconds to leave a message, or whatever you specify, and then up to 15 messages before the individual's mailbox is full. Okay. Exit on key press. You can also, in your greeting message, you can say, if this is an emergency, press star, and then maybe star directs you somewhere, and then if this is if this calls for anything else, go press 0, and then that'll direct them somewhere else. Okay, you can even direct it to your own cell phone number, or a cell phone number if it's an emergency or something like that. So you have two different options for the key presses, which you can mention in your greeting. Allow users to review. This will just give the user the ability to review their message and erase it or re-record a new message. Say message caller ID and say message duration. So when I go to pick up my voicemails, this will actually say it'll play back the caller ID that called you before playing the message and the duration of the call, or the duration of the recording. And then finally, send messages by email only. So if you select this, this will be grayed out. As you can see, we have a message at the top saying don't forget to specify an email address for the user. but you see here below, it gets grayed out. Now the reason why this said that message is because if we select send messages by email only, that means the voicemail messages are only being attached to an email and sent out by email. So everything on the phone will actually be deleted. So you have the option of actually only receiving your voicemails by email. Okay. If you don't select this, but you still want to send yourself an email, so you'll still get an email sent out to you saying, hey, you have a voicemail waiting. That's if this is deselected. And then if it's selected, it'll say, hey, you have a voicemail waiting, and here it is in the attachment. So you can listen to it from like your cell phone or anywhere else on the go, for example. Okay. So that's for voicemails. And then recordings, as we mentioned earlier, we have on-demand recordings with this specific device. So #8 to start it, #9 to stop it. You can change those two to whatever key presses you want to use to do so. And then to enable it, just select on-demand recordings. All right, so that's it for PBX settings and our administrator's login. Now I'm going to show you the user's login and the few things that they have available to them, and then we'll wrap it up with some questions, if there is any. Okay, so we'll log out here. Now, how a user logs in is with his or her own extension. So we'll use the operator, so 6005, and then the password. The password is actually their voicemail password. So their voicemail password doubles as their voicemail password and their login password for the command center. Okay, so again, they can connect in any language they want, so they can configure in any language they want. So I'm just going to go to the settings tab for a second here, just to say, because obviously you'll tell them like, hey, you want to switch your default password right away, right? Because everybody will have a default password of 1234 to start. So it's right here at the top, voicemail password. So as soon as they change this voicemail password, again, that'll double as their login for this and their voicemail password when they're checking their voicemail on their phone. Okay. So we'll go back to the first tab here is hotkeys. So this is that cheat sheet I was talking about. So again, you don't have stuff like spy extension. They should not have that available to them. It's more for specific users that can be able to use that. But they have like all the other things that would be relevant for them. And again, they're updated as soon as an administrator makes any updates. We'll see that on their cheat sheet here. Okay. We also gave them access to the status page. Now, the idea behind that was if ever the administrator is on vacation or sick or whatever the case may be, if ever there's an issue with the phone system, at least we're giving access to all the users as well. So if ever they want to call in and ask the support team for help, we have some information that they have access to. Okay, for example, if they can't make inter-office calls with the states, well, we see it only says authentication sent here. Well, then maybe the other side, the other side of the trunk is not working. So then we can attack that accordingly. Let's say they're having a trouble with their phone. As you can see here, we don't give all the information for every phone, but for at least that user, him or herself, and you'll see the status here if whether the phone's registered or not. So if it's not registered, we'll know. Has your networking information here. Lines. See if you see it says no link. Obviously, there's a physical issue there, so you can help them out like that. If they're telling you about something that sounds familiar, like it sounds like, oh, maybe that was one of the bug fixes on a last firmware version, well, then we'd know we'd be able to walk them through a firmware update. Or if they're not able to save any more recordings or anything like that, then we can see here in the storage section, oh, your USB is full. You just plug in a new USB. I'll show you how to format it, and you're good to go. So, it's just some extra information the user we'd like to give the users so that in case we ever have to help somebody else get through any problems, we'd be able to do that for you. All right, now voicemail is the next tab. So everybody has access to their voicemail through this as well. So everything you'd be able to do from your phone, you'd be able to do from here. So like moving individual messages to another folder, you can do that. You can check different messages with this drop-down box, move to different folders with this drop-down box. And once you select one of the boxes, let's say these customs here, you'll be able to customize through the phone. And then let's say you select, well, this is my friends, and then let's say I had 3 in here. You'll have your 3 messages in the table. You can listen to them right here from the table. Let's say one of them doesn't happen to belong to you, or it's more relevant to someone else, then you can forward it off as well. Okay, you can even delete from here too. Before we hit the settings, I'm just going to go to recording so you can see. So as I mentioned, it's a little easier, a little more user friendly with the recordings over here. So as I mentioned earlier, the administrator has access to every recording in the system, and obviously the users only to his or her own recordings. So you can specify the date here that you're looking for a specific recording, and it'll populate all the recorded calls that you recorded on that specific date. You'll be able to listen to it right from here, download it, delete a single entry, delete by date, or delete all of them. Okay. And finally, our settings section. So the user has a few things he or she could configure themselves. If they don't happen to have an email address and they want to start getting voicemail email, they can specify it here, or they can edit to a different email address if they want to start getting it to another one, their notifications. Voicemail time zone. So let's say I'm traveling and I want to make sure the proper time is specified. You can change your time zone depending on wherever you are. Okay, so that'll reflect in your voicemail messages. And again, you can select whatever language prompts you want to have for the people calling and accessing, leaving a voicemail message. You can change the language for that. The ring time, so in seconds, how long you want your phone calls to ring for. And then you can either forward a call or use follow me. Okay, so if you decide to forward a call, you can forward it to different users or even an external number. Maybe you want to forward it to your cell phone number. You can specify your cell phone number here. Ring extension before forwarding. So if you have that enabled, it'll actually ring your extension, and then if there's no answer, it'll forward it off to. If there's no answer by the time these seconds have passed, whatever seconds you specified here, so let's say 5 seconds, rings for 5 seconds, I didn't answer, forward it off to my cell phone number. Okay, and then finally, forward external only. If you have this selected, this will only forward external calls, so anybody outside of the system, it'll ring your extension for 5 seconds and your cell phone. Otherwise, if it's internal, it'll ring your extension and just go to voicemail. Okay, and if you can only select one or the other. Okay, so if you don't want a forward, they can select a follow me. So it's similar to a forwarded call, but now if they can't reach you at your extension, it'll try the first number, it'll try the second number, and if even the second number didn't work, then you have, if nobody has answered, I want you to go to my voicemail box, or you can just simply drop the call. All right, so that's a few things the users have access to if they decide to log in, and that concludes the training. So if anybody has any questions, or if Patrice, you'd like to add anything, please.
Yeah, Rory, what do you recommend for the size of the external hard drive or flash memory? I mean, how big are we talking on files for voicemails and things like that?
You said you have a G1212, right?
Right. Correct.
Okay. For a G1212, I'd suggest maybe a 16 or 32 gig USB stick. That should be okay. If you decide you want to do like a, like a pocket hard drive, like a laptop, one of those laptop hard drives, you can plug it into USB. That's okay too. But I would just suggest that if it's anything over 100 gigs, say, you can still format it using the Wizard or outside of the Wizard. It might just take a little while. So if you want to, not wait as long, you can format it outside of the system.
Gotcha. Okay. And also, when it gets full, does it overwrite?
When it gets full, does it?
Yeah. Does it overwrite first in, first out, or do you have to go in and actually clear those messages before it'll? Well, it actually says.
You'll actually have to clear the messages or unplug it and use a different USB. It won't erase anything on you.
Okay, so we can use multiple then, like say monthly or semi-annually or something like that, and then just tag them and hang on to them then.
You won't actually be able. You mean like will you be able to plug in one USB and the second one in the second?
No. What I mean is like have the one, and then say we'll have all of the messages and everything, recordings, everything on it for say the first quarter of 14. Then we can pull that out, put it on the shelf, put in another one, format it, and continue on there for the second quarter. Can we go back later and insert the first quarter?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You can do that.
Okay.
Yeah, you can switch between.
That's excellent. And then after a year, whatever, we just reformat them and go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. You can do that, and you can even, if you decide you want to actually keep those, file them away. You can download them download them locally.
Okay. What format are they in?
ext2.
Oh, okay. Okay, thanks.
I don't think we have any more questions.
Okay.
All right. Well, did you learn a lot?
Learned a lot. I'm going to absorb it for the next couple of hours.
There you go. Now, Cecil, I did actually get you access to the partner portal, correct?
Not yet.
Okay. I had a hard time, because remember, I had a hard time sending you emails. I always had to go through your secretary.
I should have that problem fixed now.
Okay. And did you also want to let me give access to your IT guy, person as well?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Would you mind actually sending me an email then with his name and his email address, and then I'll get that shipped up so you guys can have access? Both of you will get access at the same time?
Great. I will do that as soon as we get done.
All right, perfect.
Yep.
And
okay, that'll work.
Okay, and I was going to say, once you get the system in and you actually start, you're ready to install it, just give me a little, like a day's notice or so I can let our technicians know so they could be on standby to help you out.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Need help. Okay?
Okay. Thank you much.
Well, you're welcome. If you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to call me.
Very sure will. Thank you, Rory. Thank you, Patrice.
No
Bye.
problem.
Thanks, guys. And Patrice, I'll be in touch with you as soon as I find out if anyone else is going to participate on Monday.
Okay, perfect. That's what I was going to say, Jim. Yeah, I'm going to get that set up today, and then if we have to add people, it's just easy.
Awesome.
It's as easy as we're adding it in. Okay?
All right. Thank you very much.
And you again, if you have any questions, please don't, give me a call.
I was good up until the last part.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot to absorb, but you have access to the partner portal, don't you?
I was just sending you an email. You might as well set me up for that, too.
Okay, perfect. I will
Okay.
go ahead and make sure and get you set up for that as well.
All right. I'll shoot you an email about who else is coming
Okay,
to the
perfect.
meeting on Monday. All right?
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks, Rory.
No problem.
All right. I'll call you in
Okay.
a little bit to talk about the other one.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.